America's 52 Stories, with life lessons for personal growth.
Robert E. Lee. His father, Light Horse Harry Lee, was a Revolutionary War hero who abandoned his wife and family to a life of poverty. Robert graduated second in his class at West Point and became an Army engineer. He later assumed the role of superintendent of his alma mater, where he gave one of his best advisories.
Young men must not expect to escape contact with evil, but must learn not to be contaminated by it.
While leading West Point, he maintained a friendship with a previous superintendent, Jefferson Davis. When Davis became the president of the Confederacy, he asked Lee to be his chief military advisor and then commander of what was becoming the Army of Northern Virginia. Lee was a kind man with a great sense of fairness. He never allowed himself to criticize a subordinate regardless of rank. A very scared and young private was once ushered before him for breaking a rule. Lee tried to calm the trembling youth by saying,
"You have nothing to fear, son. You'll get equal justice here."
And the young man's response was unforgettable.
"Sir, that's what I'm afraid of."
His profound religious convictions, trusting God completely to determine all outcomes, was sometimes filled with guilt. He assumed that whenever he was despondent about doing his duty so far away from his sickly wife, he would conclude,
"It is a just punishment for my sins."
He took calculated risk to defeat an adversary who had greater advantages in men, guns, and supplies. Yet he was unimpressed with his own triumphs and saw the need to develop a convincing strategy for final victory. But time was running out. His vision of an independent South could not bargain with the negative particulars of his urgent circumstances. He was up against increasing shortages in manpower, transportation, food, not to mention plummeting civilian support, rising desertion rates, unfilled officer vacancies, and a deep personal depression over the very recent loss of his finest commander, Stonewall Jackson. Poor eyesight, angina, and exhaustion added to the frustration of his efforts. Lee wanted Gettysburg to be the final blow to the North, reasoning that victory on Northern soil would guarantee independence for the South. His unconventional tactics and bold offensive maneuvers led many to believe that he could not lose a war. Trusting in God, Lee ignored tested Commander Longstreet's advice not to order an attack through an open field that dangerously exposed his army. Even his battle planners did not take into account the mundane and inconvenient detail of post and rail fences that would impede the final attack. What became known as Pickett's Charge turned out to be the worst military attack in American history. And when it was over, Lee went to his men and admitted he had made a mistake. Lee's best-laid plan was no longer visionary. He could not see that he and history were on a collision course. 5 weeks after the battle, a despondent and sickly Lee waxed philosophical about his defeat at Gettysburg.
"We must expect reverses, even defeats. They are sent to teach us wisdom and prudence, to call forth energies and to prevent our falling into greater disasters."
Lee framed the loss in religious sentiments reminiscent of similar words he used years before when he was far away from his wife.
"Soldiers, we have sinned against Almighty God. We have forgotten His signal mercies and have cultivated a revengeful, haughty, and boastful spirit."
Seeing himself as God's failed agent at a crucial moment in history, Lee offered to resign. But it was an offer that his president was forced to reject. The great paradox of this remarkable warrior is that he was so dependent on God's will for final results. If God was the master manipulator, then General Robert E. Lee was his most humble servant. have a vision. Lee was an effective leader because he had a vision. He was motivated by a quest for an independent nation. Vision was the beacon that guided him to Gettysburg. By its powerful influence, vision is the energizing force that leads you to act with confidence and to act boldly and decisively. What you have planned for yourself in 5 or 10 years is the vision that influences you to act now. Check and recheck. An understanding of how you think influences the results you expect from the decision-making of others. A leader's monitoring leads the group in the desired direction. When acting alone, check and recheck your information. Seek outside yet reliable second and third opinions. Examine the pros and cons in writing before making a decision that can have far-reaching consequences. Take total responsibility. One sure sign of being a great leader is taking ultimate responsibility for your own mistakes. It is the most conspicuous demonstration of character. It is looking in the mirror and having your own Robert E. Lee moment. When Lee knew he was defeated, he did not blame anyone but himself. "It is my fault," he said to his troops after the catastrophe of Pickett's charge. "It is all my fault." Your admission results in reducing personal stress and tension, avoiding the need to justify a wrong decision, increasing your credibility, building trust, setting the tone for open communication, and making you more approachable. These are not bad results after you've admitted, "I really blew it this time." Pay close attention to the little details. When Lee ignored the fences when planning his attack, it contributed to his failure. When you miss the interview for that all-important summer job because you forgot to write down the appointment time, it results in your failure to get the job. Or what you consider to be a minor habit of texting results in your inability to develop meaningful relationships. Or you fail to remember the exact address of your college interview, which results in the rejection of your application. Paying close attention to what appears to be insignificant details will lead to your many accomplishments, both large and small. Right now, every student has the right to be thinking, what do I do with this information? Let's start by asking these questions, and you can provide your own answer. Give an example of when you took the blame for a mistake. How should people deal with you when you don't take the blame for your mistake? What vision do you have that motivates you to act now?